I know, no worries. Hey, all right, we're going to get started here. I've got one person with me, which is awesome. I'm excited. One day I'll have more people in person than online, which will be a happy day for me. But in the meantime, glad you're here with me online, those of you that are joining virtually. So, hey, here's what I always like to start is, and I didn't do this yesterday, but yesterday I was feeling a little crunch to get everything in. So I jumped right in. Give me some wins or successes. Either unmute and share with me a win or a success, or if you want, you can type it in the chat box, I guess. But I'll turn up the sound here for Kyle to be able to hear. Maybe. Problem is, then you'll hear me echo. All right. Nobody's going to unmute anyway. Wins or successes? Come on, somebody give me something. I feel like I'm Rodney Dangerfield. I want to be like, is this thing on?
Russ, I actually got up early this morning and started exercise a little bit, stretched out, and read a little bit.
So you got up and read this morning. Awesome. Good job. All right. What'd you say, Kyle? Oh, see, that's what we want to hear. Kyle just said he closed on his first 2 transactions yesterday. Was it a double end? Yeah. Okay, good. That's awesome. Good job. Congrats. That's cool. Let's see. Somebody else got something in the chat box. This is what I want to see. Passed my real estate exam. Good job, Bethany. Congratulations. That is awesome. Exciting times. All right. Well, we're going to get started here, and I'm excited to have you guys be with me. Get excited to get to share some things with you. We talked a little bit yesterday about the foundation of the company and your business plan, and hopefully you got started on filling out that business plan and getting that put together. Oh, actually, I'm going to turn this. Hang on one sec. I got to get the screen down so that Kyle will be able to see what I'm doing when I share my screen. So I apologize. Thought I was prepared and ready, but I wasn't. Okay. We're going to get talking about today is lead generation. And the idea of what I want to talk about today more so is going to deal with the idea of how to convert into an appointment is really what we're going to talk about. Now, with that being said, though, we are going to go through and we're going to talk about ways that you can do it, meaning we'll talk about some for sale by owners, we'll talk about some expireds, we'll talk about some of those things. So know that that's what we're going to do. But for me, most important though to this is really at the end of the day, the thing that is most important is that you understand when you are prospecting, whatever type of prospecting you are going to be doing, whatever that is, what's most important really is for you to be able to understand how to go from basically zero to being able to set an appointment in your prospecting that you're going to do, regardless of if it's knocking on doors, regardless if it was out calling just listed, just sold, calling a for sale by owner, calling an expired listing, calling on an internet lead. It really doesn't matter. The process is essentially going to be the same. And so that's what we're going to talk about today is mostly that. But then like I said, I will also include in that conversation as we go through and talk about it, that to understand the different ways that we do it. So if you have questions along the way, please unmute or throw it in the chat box. I'll keep an eye on that as well. But want to be able to really make sure that when you leave here, you leave with some good information. So as I always do at the start of these things, just as a reminder, if you will throw in, since we have people Utah and California on here, if you'll put in a first name and last name in the chat box and then the office that you're in, that way I know if you're California or Utah is helpful for me. I would appreciate that. That way I can keep track of who was here in the class and things. So with that, we're going to get started now. So, all right, here's what I'm going to do. So I'm going to share my screen with you here and do some whiteboard writing on here like we did yesterday. I won't do as much, I don't think, at least my plan is not to as much today as what I did yesterday, but we're going to do some. So here's where I'm going to start with is I want to take you through the process of what this is going to look like to get your business up and running. Now, regardless, I know we have agents on here who are seasoned agents as well. The majority probably are new. And actually, as I looked at it yesterday, I think it's more like it's probably about a half to 2/3 of you are new. The other half to 1/3 or 1/3 to half are seasoned agents who are just wanting to fine tune your skills and things, which is awesome. Thank you for being here. That is the thing that unfortunately happens is too many times what happens is people will term the peak agent training as new agent training because typically that's the half to the majority of who attends. But I will tell you this, what I'm training you guys in and helping you with, you will notice if you haven't already, really is not just for new agents, it is helpful skills. And for me personally, I've been licensed for a few years when I first learned this. And I'm going to share with you a little bit about that today. But here's where I want to start with, is I want to start with what your journey to either getting your business up and running looks like, or if you have been licensed and just took COVID off, so to speak, how to get things going again. Or maybe you have been licensed and you're just saying, you know what, I just want to go to a new level. This is the process that you're going to go through. So I want to start with showing that to you. So I'm going to draw this out here. And this is where I wish I would have applied myself better in kindergarten and art class, but I didn't. Oh, well. All right. So here's the process. This is what it's going to look like, something like that, to getting your business up and running. So what you're looking at here, as on this line here, what you're looking at is that is the learning curve. So it's the process that you're going to go through it in terms of anytime you are going to be learning anything new is going to look like that. That is also half of a bell curve, just so that you know. But anytime you're going to learn something new, which another good book for you guys, I mentioned yesterday that I would tell you books that I would recommend that you read, is written by, shoot, can't remember his first name or last name now, is Leonard, but either first or last name. I think it's last. But the name of the book is Mastery. And this one, it seems like when I got it that I had a little bit of a hard time finding it. So I don't know that it's still in print, but it's an awesome book, but it's called Mastery. The idea of this book, Mastery, is about learning to master anything. And so he will talk about this curve that I'm showing you in there as well, about how what happens is this. Anytime you are trying to master something new, what's going to happen is there's going to be this period where it's just flat. Regardless of what skill you're working on, learning a new skill, becoming more proficient at a skill, what is going to happen is you're going to have kind of this time where nothing's really going on. Now, I will say more about this next week as we get into the SOI as well, but just know that part of what happens anytime you're going to master a new skill is we work on it and nothing seems to happen. And then all of a sudden there is this huge run up. Okay. So that's the process now, but what I'm going to do today with you is I'm going to break this down into actually a few other sections, and we're going to talk about these different sections here. Now, as I do this, as I take you through this, I'm going to actually share with you a story as we go through this as well, and share with you the story about me and how I learned what I'm going to share with you today. So that's kind of the idea of where we're going to start is I'm going to share with you how I learned this process that I'm taking you through. Now, the first step for any of us, and especially you guys that are new to real estate, is going to be what we call the activities phase. So this first section here is the activities phase. So this here is what we would call the activities phase. During the activities phase is when we are doing things that are getting ready to get going. See, what happens in real estate and what I have learned over the years that I have had my license is agents are constantly getting ready to get going. And that phase is a typical normal phase that people are going to go through. And when you're in that phase, this activities phase, what is happening is if you look at this line down here, you can see what's happening. So either unmute or throw it in the chat box. What's happening? If think of that line as being your income, what's happening?
Not much.
Okay, perfect. Thank you. That's right. Not much. Now, guess what happens if you continue to stay in the activities phase? Yeah, Kyle said same thing. Exactly right. During the activities phase, what is going remember I told you guys yesterday I'm getting you more involved today. This is where I'm getting you more involved all of a sudden. All right. Yeah, notice that during the activities phase, not much is happening in terms of an income. And if you stay in that phase, not much will happen. I see this happen over and over and over with people is what happens is they get their real estate license, they come into real estate and they go, okay, but what if somebody asks me a question that I don't know the answer to? Because ultimately, when you went through real estate school, did they teach you how to sell real estate? The answer is no, they didn't. Instead, what they taught you is how to pass the test. So you get your license and you come into real estate and you're like, okay, now what? Now, well, but hold on. If I go and talk to somebody and I ask them, they ask me a question, what if I don't know the answer? Well, I don't know how to do this or I don't know how to do that. See, because of that, what happens is then it holds us back. Your brain is designed to keep you safe. If you go back in time, anthropologists would say that ultimately your the reason we are how we are is because our ancestors had to be worried about getting eaten by a lion. Well, you don't have to worry about getting eaten by a lion anymore. Like that's pretty rare that that's going to happen. In fact, when is the last time you saw one? Was probably in the zoo behind a cage. So as a result of that, you don't have to be worried about that. But your brain is designed around I got to keep you safe because there's scary things out there. So it is a normal thing to want to stay in this activities phase, but also just know this is what's going to happen to your income if you stay there. All right. The next phase is what we would call the contacts phase. In this contacts phase, what is going on here? Oops, that is not what I meant to do. What's going on in the contacts phase here is we're starting to go make contacts. So what you need to do, so what I have been trying to tell you so far is get out of this activities phase and into the contacts phase as soon as you can. As quick as you can, you need to get out of the activities phase and get over and into the contacts phase. Well, now in the contacts phase, what is going to be taking place is you're going to go start making contacts. Now, remember I said I'm going to share with you basically a story for me of how this all came about. Well, when I got my license, I have always been the type of a person that I would go to whoever my manager or person I reported to, whatever, and I would say to them, "Tell me what I need to do for work." Because I just didn't like to sit around and do nothing. So I would go and say, "Tell me what to do." Well, I came into real estate, and for whatever reason, I guess I was young and naive, I don't know, but I just kind of just assumed like somebody was going to tell me what to do. So I went to my manager and I said to my manager, okay, his name was Tom. I went to him and I said, Tom, tell me what to do because I need to get this up and running quickly. Now, for me, and I'm sure many of you have similar stories that apply to you, but for me, my plan initially was to do this part-time. My plan was to come into real estate. I was going to be part-time. I was working at a bank. I was going to work at the bank during the day. And then at night, I was going to go and do real estate. Well, when I went and interviewed with my manager that I ended up hiring on with, I said to him, he said, are you going to be full-time or part-time? And I said, part-time to begin with, but I'm going to work into full-time. And he gave me the best advice he had ever given me. Now, I have watched other people make that transition, but I'm just telling you for me personally. So I'm not saying you can't do it. For me personally, he said to me, it won't work. Now, he didn't know me to know if it would work or not, but he said, it's not going to work. And I said, okay, what do you mean? And he said, well, just think about it. Like, how excited after you get done working all day at the bank are you going to be to go get on the phone and make prospecting phone calls? And I was kind of like, yeah, probably not. And the truth is, just telling the truth about myself, I knew I wasn't going to want to do that. So I went home and said to my wife, okay, this guy says if I'm going to do it, I got to just go all in, burn the boats. And my wife was like, okay, but like, we're barely making it with both of us working. I don't know how you're going to do that. And I said, all right, well, we're going to figure it out. So I jumped in and went right after it. Well, so because of that, I went to my manager early on and I said, what do I need to do? And he told me, first thing, go make a list of everyone you know and mail them a letter or a card that says, I've started real estate. So I did that. Then I said, okay, now what should I do? And he was like, well, now go through and start calling those people. And I was kind of like, ooh, I don't know about that. I'm not sure I want to call the people. So I said, okay. And then I didn't really go do it though. I just said, okay. So I waited a couple days and then I went back to him and I said, okay, now what should I do? And he said, okay. And I think he just got tired of me coming and asking. But here's what he said to me is he said, here's what you need to do. You need to just go out and knock on doors for 2 hours every day for the next 2 years. So that's your task. Go knock on doors for 2 hours every day for 2 years. And honestly, I sometimes wonder if that was just his way of like, quit coming and asking me what to do. And so I said, okay. And now I mentioned to you guys yesterday that I had teamed up with Shirley. And Shirley and I, what happened was I said to Shirley, hey, Tom said we should go out and knock on doors 2 hours every day. So let's do that. So Shirley and I decided we would go out and knock on doors. Well, we would go out and knock on doors from 10 o'clock until about noon every single day. And our objective actually was to get to 25 contacts from door knocking. Now, where that came from actually, and I'll say more about this in a different class, in the SOI class, but where that came from was he had asked me about how much money I wanted to make. And my goal was what I told you guys yesterday, which is most agents' goals when they start real estate is I want to make $100,000 a year. And he said, okay, well, let's do the numbers. And so we worked into the numbers. And at that time, the average commission was $2,000. So he said, if you're going to get an average of $2,000 off of every commission check and you want to make 100,000, then clearly, easy math, I got to do 50 transactions. And there is this saying, and I think it's a good place to start. I think it's a good place to start, but if you really look at it, it doesn't necessarily play out that way. And thus my story that I'm giving to you is what he told me is if you will go and make 50 contacts every day, what he told me is if I would go make 50 contacts every day, I would make $100,000 at the end of the year. Great. If I could get 25 contacts from going out and door knocking, then I needed to get 25 more contacts. So what Shirley and I would do is we would go knock on doors from 10 until about noon, till we got 25 contacts. We would then go back to the office, go separate ways, eat lunch. We would meet back. I think I may have just had a problem. Did you guys lose me? Am I still there? It looks like it's still there.
You're on now, Russ.
Did it pause for a minute or what happened?
Yeah, it's affirmative.
Okay. Cool. Sorry about that. I don't know how long I was gone. I just heard a sound in my ear.
I'd say just back up 15 seconds, 20.
I think what happened is
we're not hearing you at all, Russ.
Yeah, George Leonard, sorry. Yeah, on that book, Mastery. So Kyle looked it up and it was George Leonard. All right. My Bluetooth is not turning back on. All right. Well, can you guys hear me okay now? Probably not as good as you were, but.
You're good.
Okay. Well, good news is that makes it to where Kyle can hear you now too. So, all right, here we go. So here's what happened then is I ended up going out and I would knock on doors till I got about 25 contacts. Then Shirley and I would go jump on the phone and we would make phone calls. And so, okay, Ginger, I'm seeing no sound. You guys still there? Is that an old one?
That's an old one. You're back.
All right. Old being like 30 seconds ago, I guess, right?
Right.
Okay. So what happened is I started going out and doing that. And then in the afternoon, Shirley and I would get on the phone and we would make phone calls until we hit our 50 contacts for the day. Well, I did that for about 1.5 years. And here's what I will tell you. After 1.5 years, I was nowhere near making $100,000 a year. And
I had essentially replaced my income, and I was doing 50 contacts a day. Now, remember I said that my manager had told me, however many contacts a day you make is how much money you're going to make. Well, the reason I say to you guys, it is a good place to start, but I don't believe that that's actually necessarily the truth. And here's what I mean by that is because for me personally, I did it for a year and a half and I didn't get 50 transactions. Now, typically, what do you think most people would say? And I want an answer from you guys on this, either in the chat box or unmute. What do you think most managers would say if you went into them and you said, okay, I'm not making $100,000 a year. In fact, I was probably not even quite to half of that. It might have been close, but I don't think I was even to $50,000 a year at that time. And I was making 50 contacts a day. And believe me, when I tell you Shirley and I held each other accountable to do it, we held each other accountable to do it. It happened. So you guys tell me, if you went to your manager and you said, okay, I'm making 50 contacts a day, but I only made, basically, let's just say it was $50,000 a year. I made $50,000. I thought I was supposed to make 100. What do you think most managers would tell you to do? Okay, say that louder, Kyle. Okay, did you guys hear that or no? Kyle said, talk to more people. No, that is the answer. That it's not the answer, but that is the answer that they give you. Most managers, if you went to them and said, here's how much money I'm making and here's how many contacts I'm doing, they would say, well, then you just need to do more contacts. Now, here's the problem with that. There was another guy in my office that started about the same time as Shirley and I, and his name was Perry. And Perry, in fact, actually, this has nothing to do with the story, but I got to tell you real quick, and maybe you guys won't think it's funny, but I did. Perry would wear the exact same thing every single day, the exact same tie every day. And I one day asked him, out of concern, can I help you out? Do you need some money to buy a new tie? And I didn't straight out say it that way, but in a nice way, I went to him and was like, hey, I noticed that you have the same clothes on every day. Can I help you out in that? And he was like, oh no, that's a marketing strategy. And I was like, okay. And he said, if I wear the same thing every day, then when people see me, they'll know who I am. And I was like, all right. But it didn't work, I guess, is where I'm kind of going with it. I understand the idea of that there are some CEOs that just have 10 of the same shirt and all that kind of stuff so they don't have to make decisions. Totally get that. But here was my point with Perry. He was going out and making, I want to say he was doing 30 contacts every day, closed nothing. See, so for me, when I say this contacts is a great place to start, in our business, in our profession, there is a lot of anecdotal information, meaning there's a lot of stories that get told with nothing to back them up. And one of the stories that gets told is this, of you will do the number of contacts you do on a daily basis is how many deals you'll do in a year. Well, it's a good place to start. So I'm not, the people who say that have good intentions, and I will 100% agree, it is a great place to start. In fact, you'll notice here on this that I've put up here, the second phase that we're talking about is the contacts phase. You've got to get out and make contacts. If you're not, so here's my, try to get you off the ledge for a second. If you're stuck in the activities phase, it is time to get to the contacts phase. And you should approach it the way that we're saying. Decide how many transactions you want, and that's how many contacts you need to do it on a daily basis. But know that that doesn't ensure you're going to do it, is I guess really what I'm saying is, even though you will hear us say that, you'll hear George say that from time to time. The number of contacts you do is the number of transactions you're going to do. It's a good place to start. But I'll tell you from my own experience, I did it for a year and a half, and I did not, in a year and a half, not even in a year, I hadn't closed 50 transactions. So just know it's a good place to start. but there's a better place to be. So now here's the point of this. So what happened is a year and a half into this, I go to a training and I meet this guy who has now become a good friend of mine and a mentor for me. And in fact, actually, most of this stuff that I train you guys in, he trained me in it. So what I'm training you in, I got this from this mentor, and he became a mentor because of this particular conversation that I'm sharing with you. And here's what happened was I went to this training, and it was a 5-day training, but it was broken up as a Monday, Tuesday, then the next week, Wednesday, Thursday, then we would go 2 weeks and we would do it on a Friday. And what happened was this, is we were on day 2. So in essence, today's class, what you guys are in today, I was in that class and we start to have this same type of a discussion. And in the process of this discussion, I brought up that I was doing 50 contacts a day. And he asked me how much money I was making. And I told him it was less than $50,000 a year. And he said, well, what if, now keep in mind, I was prospecting for essentially 4 to 5 hours a day and not making $50,000 a year. Now, don't all go, yeah, I'm out, I'm going to go get a real job. Don't do that, because the key thing was what he said to me next is he said, what if I told you there was a way for you to double your income to get to the $100,000 a year, but that you could do it by prospecting half as much? And I was like, wait a minute, you're telling me I could do less prospecting than I'm doing, but double my income? And he said, yeah, you could do it. And I said, all right, I'm game. Tell me what to do. What do I need to do if I want that to take place? And what he said was this, is he then drew this up on the board. So he drew what you're looking at right now, this on the board. And then what happened was he introduced me to the next piece of this. The next piece of this is what we would call, and I'm going to abbreviate it here for, that's the appointments phase. What he showed me was the next piece of this is the appointments phase. In the appointments phase, notice this curve here. So if you notice what's happened here, now, if you're back here on the contacts phase, notice that there starts, if this is your income, there starts to be a little bit of a liftoff. There is some income that comes in. And I will tell you, for me, when I left that activities phase and got into the contacts phase, I started to make some money. I wasn't making the kind of money I wanted to make, but I was making some money. And when I went to him and he said, I'm going to introduce you to this process, this journey, and if you'll follow this, you're going to then make some money. I said, great. Well, this phase here, this appointments phase, you'll notice this is the steepest part of the learning curve. Well, essentially, that's what we're going to talk about today, is the steepest part of this learning curve. And how do you get better at it? What are the things that you want to do, and how do you do it to get better at it? Now, for the rest of the story, let me tell you what happened. What he did, though, is he introduced this to me, and what he told me was this, is he said, currently, the way that you're prospecting is you are out prospecting and looking for 50 contacts every day. So guess what you get at the end of the day if you focus on 50 contacts? I feel bad for Kyle because I asked the question and then I just look at him.
It's
50
contacts.
Yeah, good. Yeah, that's true. He knows the answers too. But yeah, good. Thank you guys. It's contacts. If you focus on 50 contacts, at the end of the day, you get 50 contacts. And here's what, let me tell you, for me, I would get the 50 contacts and I would go home at night and I felt good. I accomplished my goal. I did what I said I was going to do, which is great. And I felt good. But when it came time to actually having the money that I wanted, it wasn't working. It wasn't to the point that I needed to go to. And so here's the key. So the first thing is we talk about lead generation and setting appointments. The number one thing you need to remember is this: focus. What is your focus on? See, my focus was on 50 contacts a day. And at the end of the day, what I would get was 50 contacts. Well, that was great, except for that it wasn't the money that I wanted. I was doing the contacts to make money, not just to get to 50 contacts. So what he said to me is, you got to quit focusing on contacts and instead now focus on setting appointments. So he He said, okay, so you want to double your income and prospect half as much. Yep, that's what I want to do. And he said, okay, here's what you're going to do then. He said, just for the next week. He said, just for the next week, I want you to commit to setting one appointment every day. So let me write this up here. So one appointment per day. Now, let me make sure you guys understand this, because at that point, when I was doing the 50 contacts a day, and I was tracking all of this, I am like kicking myself now that I didn't save all of my either sticky notes or the pad or whatever that I did it on. I'm kicking myself that I didn't save those, that I had these to track, that I didn't track it in a spreadsheet or something to share this with you guys. But because I'm going to just have to go off of my memory. I was doing 50 contacts a day. So essentially 250 contacts per week. Now, not always would I hit 250, but I was between 225 and 250 every week. And here's what I will tell you is typically on a weekly basis, I might have set one appointment, maybe two sometimes, but I was not getting very many. Well, all of a sudden now he's telling me that what he wants me to do, and at this point he was saying, you only got to do this for a week. But what he said is, if you will, for 1 week, set one appointment every day. And here's the key. Don't go home until you set the appointment. And I was like, okay, I can do that. So then he said, all right, here's the deal. I want to make sure you understand. You can't go home tomorrow if you don't get an appointment. And I was like, I get it. And he said, okay, but let me just make sure you really get it. Go home tonight and tell your wife, I am not coming home tomorrow if I don't set an appointment. And I was like, oh, wait a minute. Like, I really have to set an appointment? And he's like, yeah, you really got to set an appointment. You don't get to go home if you don't set an appointment. And I was like, ooh, I don't know if I want to commit to that. And he said, now it's only for 1 week. He said, you know, like you could do it for a week. If you didn't go home for a week, it would be okay. And I was like, ooh, I don't know. But he got me to commit to it. And I finally said, all right, I'll do it. Now, let me ask you a question. And on this one, I do want answers, either unmute or throw it in the chat box. If I said to you, tomorrow morning, tomorrow, Friday, you have to set an appointment before you go home. So you leave the house. So now the answer can't be, I just wouldn't leave the house. So that can't be the answer. Although I know some of you guys in California, that probably is the answer for right now with COVID. But hypothetically, mentally, you can't quit working until you set an appointment. What time would you start working tomorrow?
Way early.
Okay, good, Carla. So like what time is way early?
7 a.m.
Okay.
But calling by 8.
Okay, who else? What time are you going to start working? Pierce said 5 a.m. All right, good.
8 a.m.
8 a.m. Okay.
And I'd have a sense of urgency. I wouldn't allow distractions, side conversations, other agents in the office like that to take time from me.
Perfect. Yes. Thank you, Ginger. That's exactly right. So here's what it was. So now remember, I told you Shirley and I would meet every day. We would do some role play and then we would head out door knocking. We would typically get to the office between 9 and 9:30, both of us. We would meet into a conference room at about 9:35-ish. And then we would role play for 25, 30 minutes. We would jump in the car. We would drive out to the area we door knocked. And the area that we door knocked at that time, the average price of the houses was $80,000. We liked those because if you listed them, they sold like the market is today. So that's why we would go door knock there. Well, all of a sudden now keep in mind, this is a Tuesday. I'm making a commitment from starting the next day, Wednesday, until the next Tuesday. Well, the next class Wednesday. So Wednesday through Tuesday. I had to set one appointment every day that I worked. Now, he allowed for me to take 2 days off. So if I wanted to take 2 days out of the 7 off, so I had to set 5 appointments within a week. And ultimately it was, and I went home and told my wife, I can't come home tomorrow if I don't set an appointment. And my wife was like, are you sure about this? And I was like, yeah, it's just a week. We can do it. And she's like, all right, well, you better hurry because we have tomorrow that you got to be home for. And I was like, okay. Now, so just what you guys said, the next day I was like, total sense of urgency, Ginger. I was like, yep, okay, I'm up in the morning. I was at the office at 7 a.m. because I was like, all right, I'm going to get all the expireds pulled. I'm going to go. And back then we didn't have any system in place for sale by owners. So you would stop and pick up the newspaper at a convenience store. If you didn't have it at your house, you would stop and pick up a newspaper so that you could look through the newspaper to get the expireds. So I did that. So I'm at the office at 7 a.m. I've got the expireds pulled. I've got the for sale by owners ready. 8 a.m. because technically that's when we can actually start making phone calls. 8 a.m. I was on the phone and I'm just hammering. Now, let me ask you this too, because I know we have seasoned agents on here. If I said to you, you have to set an appointment tomorrow before you go home, what is the first source you would use to start calling to set appointments? And I'm asking the seasoned agents for a specific reason.
Yeah,
Okay.
SOI.
Okay, good. Yeah, Barbara and Ginger both say SOI. Good. Who else, though, that potentially could get you a deal maybe even faster than that? Now, this may be a little bit of a trick question, but.
Expired?
Okay. But yeah, okay, potentially. So when I say a trick question on it, here's what I mean by that is if you're a seasoned agent, you probably have some leads from the past that people have said, I've thought about buying or I've thought about selling. So your SOI has given you referrals or any of those. So for me, that was the first place as I was like, I'm going to call through every lead that I've got first because I felt like those are probably my best chance. Now, so I did that and I started calling through these leads that I had, all the sticky notes that were on my desk that I had done nothing with. Because here's what I will tell you. One of the things that I've noticed that agents are guilty of, and I was too, and probably still am, is to get a lead, write it down somewhere, and then just leave it sitting on my desk and think, well, I'll call them later. Well, I don't feel like calling them right now. I'll call them later. Well, we miss out on a lot of deals because we do that. So for me, that was where I was like, okay, I'm going to call through and talk to those people first. So I called through those and guess what? I set an appointment from it. Now I'm going to get into more in just a bit. Let me finish the story and then I'm going to tell you what I did, what I changed. But I called through and had the appointment. Well, now the other piece that I left out of this story that this trainer had told me that I had to do was once I had set an appointment for the day. Remember yesterday I talked about having balance in health and relationships along with your business? Well, what he said to me is once you have set your appointment for the day, get whatever work you need to done. So if you have office administrative work to do at the office, do it. If you have appointments later in the day, do them. But as soon as you have set your appointment for the day, you're done. Go home, finish whatever paperwork you have to do. Go on any appointments you have to go on, but outside of that, go home, go be with your family. And I was like, okay. Now at that point, my oldest son at that point was probably 2 years old-ish. So it wasn't like he was in school. So if I got my appointment and went home, I could be at home. So I left and that day I set my appointment before 10 o'clock. Now, remember, I was doing 4 to 5 hours of prospecting. Well, now it's been 2 hours of prospecting or less than that. Probably actually was about an hour and a half, but I don't remember exactly. But within 2 hours, I set the appointment. Well, so Shirley shows up at 9:30 and is like, hey, let's go role play so we can go door knocking. And I said, Shirley, I'm not going door knocking today. And she goes, what? And I said, well, I was in that training. She didn't go to it. I said, I was in that training yesterday. One of the things I committed to doing is setting an appointment every day. And then once I set the appointment, I have to be done working other than stuff, paperwork, stuff that I have to do. And she was like, this is not a good idea. She was a great accountability partner because she was like, this is not going to work out well, Russ. Don't do that. And I said, it's just for a week, Shirley. So just give me a week. And then I promise I'm back at it with you. So 10 o'clock, I'm done. I finished whatever paperwork stuff I needed to do for the day and jumped in the car and I was home. I pulled in the house at about noon And my wife was like, what are you doing? And I said, well, I'm done working for today. She's like, yeah, I'm not sure this is a good idea. So now I got Shirley telling me it wasn't a good idea. I got my wife telling me it wasn't a good idea, because remember, in my wife's mind, I'm working all day, every day, and coming home and not making any money. And now here I am showing up at home at noon when I left the office, left to home at probably 6:45 to get to the office at 7. So I've been there for, 5 hours. And she's like, I don't think this is a good idea. Told her the same thing I said to Shirley. It's for 1 week. Let's just see what happens. So the next day I go in early, same thing. I start doing this and I'm setting an appointment. Now, what changed was this. The thing that changed for me was the focus. See, instead of focusing on making a contact, I now was focusing on an appointment. So for you, in terms of your lead generation, the most important thing you can do is focus on setting one appointment, whatever that looks like for you. Decide, like if you were on Morning Ascent today, Judy talked about having a schedule. You might not have your schedule set up to where it's going to be every single day, just like the lady she talked about that had Tuesdays and Thursdays, sounded like she must have had to go do dialysis or something. I don't know what it was, but she wasn't available to do it. Well, then don't hold yourself to setting an appointment on that day. But on the days that you are going to work, hold yourself accountable of, and in fact, I even ended up printing a thing, making a paper that said your mission, one appointment. Like that was my whole objective. And I had my wife trained that when I would walk into the house every day, the first thing she asked me, did you set an appointment? Because I told her if I ever walk in and say no, you point to the door and say, then get out of here. You're not welcome back in my house until you set an appointment. That's how you need to approach it. This is like do or die. I have to set an appointment. If you'll approach it that way, it is amazing how all of a sudden you start getting appointments. Now, why do you think that is? So share with me, why do you think that is? Why all of a sudden did I start getting appointments every day? Maybe I'm gone again, so it's just you and I, Kyle.
Your speech changes a little bit because you have a different intention. So instead of just saying, oh, are you interested in buying a house or selling? Okay, cool. It's kind of more like, okay, when are you interested? Are you pre-qualified? Your speech changes a little around that.
Okay, good. Could you guys hear him?
No, please repeat.
Okay. So he said, basically your speech is going to change. The way you talk to people is going to change. Instead of just talking to them to get a contact, which is exactly what I was doing, by the way. As soon as I would knock on someone's door and they opened the door, in my mind, I was mentally making that tick mark already. Here's a contact. Like my objective every day was to get to 50 contacts. And in fact, actually, if you stop and think about it, what happened was this. If you have never made 50 contacts in a day, it takes some time to do. And so as a result of that, like for me, it was like, okay, I got to do this as fast as I can. Meaning if I knocked on Kyle's door and he answered the door, I would have said to him, hey, my name's Russ. I'm with Century 21. We just listed this house and I'm just wondering who you know that wants to move into the area. Nobody. Okay, well, how about you? You thinking about buying or selling? No. Okay, we'll talk to you later. There's a tick mark. There's a contact. See, because my thought was the faster I can get off his doorstep and onto the next doorstep, the faster I can get to 50 contacts, faster I can be done, the faster I can go home and feel like I worked really hard today, and also the faster I could not have any money. So all of a sudden though, now when it changes to you just got to set an appointment, it almost didn't matter how long I talked to Kyle if I knock on his door, if at the end of that conversation, we ended up with me setting an appointment. And that's what changes in this. See, when your focus goes from it is about getting appointments versus contacts. Now, I am not saying don't keep track of contacts. You should still keep, because I already told you, I wish I still had it from before. The reason you want to still keep track of how many contacts you're making on a daily basis and how many appointments you're setting is because that is what's going to tell you, are you getting better at setting an appointment? See, ultimately what should happen is you should get to the point where you are able to make fewer contacts to set an appointment. To begin with, you might have to do 50 to get an appointment. But as you get better, you should get to where you don't need to. And here's what I'll tell you. When he said to me, if you will set one appointment a day and don't go home until you do it, you'll prospect half as much and double your income. The reason that that worked is because when your focus is on, I can't quit till I set an appointment, it is amazing how much more you're going to, I hesitate to use the word push, but that's what keeps coming to my mind, to push for an appointment. But that's probably not the right way of saying it, is that you will be amazed at how much more you're going to engage them in a conversation that allows you to set an appointment. That's probably the way to say it. All right. So just to wrap this piece up so we can get to the next is the last phase is what we would call the transactions phase. The transactions phase is when you're wanting to, here's what, let me say it this way. That next year, my income more than doubled from the year before. And it was 100% from, I would not go home until I set an appointment. See, I did it for that week. And then after that week, I could see things were changing. I could see this would make a huge impact in my business. And so I did it every day after that. That's where I say it became just my mission every day is I got to set an appointment. Well, a year later, I had doubled my income, more than doubled my income. And I was prospecting half as much, which, by the way, I don't think I ever went door knocking with Shirley ever again. I hate to say that, but I told her, give me 1 week. But after the week, I realized I can set an appointment. We still went door knocking, but it was more of like, I started to find ways of me setting appointments that was better. I don't know if better is the right word, different than that. So the year after that. So the first year after I started doing that, I doubled my income. The next year I doubled my income. The year after that, I didn't quite double it, but I increased it considerably. Here's what I will tell you. Doing this will generate a huge amount of income for you. If you want to then go to the next phase of this, which is this transactions phase, if you want to get to that, now let me kind of break this down for you. In this appointments phase is where you're going to be making, I would say, between $100,000 and $300,000 a year by setting one appointment a day, if you'll do that. And I would say to you, if you will set one appointment a day, you're going to be probably closer to the 300 than the 100,000. But initially, that first year, you may only be over 100, between 100 and 150. The second year, though, you should be between 250 and 300. When you want to start going into the $400,000 and $500,000 a year or more, that I don't even know what that says. That was so poorly written. 500K. That's not much better. Anyway, or more per year. What you have to do is keep one appointment a day. See, the next phase of this is this one was set an appointment every day. This one is keep an appointment every single day. If you keep an appointment every day, in order to do that, you probably got to set 2 or 3, right? Because people are going to cancel. So you've got to keep one appointment every day. If you keep one appointment every day, that's when you're now doing the over 500,000 and really probably more in the $700,000-800,000 a year kind of at the range. All right. So that's the first thing. There's principle 1. I'm 50 minutes into this to give you principle 1. But it's crucial that you understand that is when in fact, actually, let me tell it to you this way. If we just ended the class right now and said, okay, thanks for being here, guys. At the end of the day, if you will do nothing else we talk about but this, focus on set an appointment every day, you're going to be just fine. But you got to hold yourself to do it. Okay. Now we're not going to end it there because now the next step is, how do I do it then? How do I go? The making contacts is easy. Like you just go knock on somebody's door, you call them on the phone, and when they answer and you start to talk to them, that's a contact. That's easy. See, that's the problem. That's why I said to you, just making contacts, saying 50 contacts is not going to equate necessarily, it might, to 50 transactions a year. But my experience is, as I've watched it, especially with newer agents or agents who have not really done a lot of prospecting, that's maybe a way of saying it, you're not going to do the equal number. And the reason is because your focus is not on appointments. Now, if you made 50 contacts and your focus was on setting appointments with all 50 contacts, that might be true. But like I told you, the guy that I worked with, Perry, he was doing 25, 30 contacts every day, and he never did a transaction ever. So just making contacts is not going to get you there. But setting appointments from those contacts is where the rubber meets the road. That is why it's the steepest part of this curve. So now let's go through, and we're going to now talk about how do we do this then? How do I set appointments? So remember I said, I'm going to show you, and I will at some point here. I've got a PowerPoint that I'm going to pull up and show you here in a few minutes. It doesn't matter which of the ways that you do the prospecting. What matters is this. So I'm going to give you three things here. So number one is in terms of you setting appointments. The first thing that's got to happen is you have got to connect, or we could write it as have rapport with the people you're talking to. You've got to connect, and you've got to create some rapport. Okay. So you've got to connect with them or have some rapport with them. Well, how do you do that? See, now for me, here's how I like to think about this. And again, it doesn't matter what type of prospecting you're doing. I don't care if it's your SOI. I don't care if it's just listed, just sold, if it's door knocking, if it's expired listings, if it's for sale by owners. I don't really care what it is. What matters is the first thing that has to happen when that phone call takes place, or that if you're in person talking to them, is you have to, and I like to think of it as you've got to earn the right for them to talk to you. See, stop and think about yourself for a minute. When you answer your phone and it's a salesperson, which by the way, I don't know if about you guys, but I probably get a call every single day from Marriott. Is anybody else getting that call? You have been chosen from our blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, and then finally at the end, it says, if you don't want to receive these calls anymore, press 2. I always stay on to the end to press 2, and they still call me the next day. I think what happens is they say, if you press 2, you're telling us this is actually a good phone number and we're going to keep calling you. I don't know, but I get that call all the time. But here's the thing. Stop and think about it for you. You answer the phone and it's a person selling solar, or it's a person selling whatever, Marriott. I don't care. What is the first thing that goes through your mind? This is the give me an answer section. And I'm not going to pick on, I'm intentionally not looking at Kyle. So
You're bothering me. Go away.
go away, right? That's what our first thought is, I don't really want to talk to this person, right? That's what usually happens. Now, our job then is we have got to create a connection with them. We've got to do something. We got to earn the right to keep them on the phone. Now, let me share with you another quick story of this. Now, remember that there were a lot of days that I would go and prospect, and by noon I was done and would be leaving the office, which FYI, we have got a guy at our office here at Union Park by the name of Mike Harris that I have been here for probably at least 3 years. I have probably been here at Everest for 3 years before I had heard the guy's name. I had never seen him before. And I think the reason I had never seen him before is because he shows up to the office, he goes into his office, he shuts his door, he makes phone calls till about noon, and then he's done and he's gone. And I need to find out how much money he makes, but I think he closes 30, 35 transactions a year. He does a decent amount of business. But what was my point of that? I don't know what. Oh, I know what it was. So for me, I get it though, because he typically prospects, gets his appointment, and then and actually, I don't know if he is doing an appointment every day or if he's just doing contacts, but he prospects till noon, and then he pretty much, you will see him walking out of this building sometime between 11:30 and 12 every day. You can count on it, clockwork. He's walking out the door between 11:30 and 12 because he's finished what his job is. Well, so there was a lot of days that I would end up at home by noon because I had set my appointment. I didn't have an appointment till later in the afternoon. I would go home for lunch and just kind of hang out, mow the lawn, go golfing, whatever I was that I did. But there was one particular day that I learned this lesson that we're going to talk about right now. And what happened was this. So in my house, if you were to go to where I would be sitting eating my lunch, I'm going to really try to take my time and draw this better so that you might actually see what this is here. So imagine that that's the front door of my house, okay? So I'm sitting in the dining area of the house, and from where I would sit at the kitchen, or yeah, it was the kitchen table, if somebody knocked on the door, I could turn and look, you know, and I would see what you're seeing on the board. Is I could see, here was the door, and we had these two windows, or have these two windows on each side. Well, I got home one day to eat lunch, and my wife says to me, man, we have had so many people knocking on the door trying to sell stuff today. She's like, seriously, I think I've had 3 or 4 people knock on the door wanting to sell me something. And I was like, wow, that's kind of unusual. And she said, yeah. She's like, I feel bad for the next person that does that. And while I'm sitting there eating lunch, I hear knock on the door. So I turn and look, and I can see in this little window here, a guy standing there. And I can tell it's not somebody that I know. So I turn to my wife and I say, here's your chance. Because like, it couldn't have played out better. Here's your chance. There's a guy at the door. I don't know who it is. So my wife goes, she opens the door. Now I could only briefly hear what he was saying, but I could hear when my wife responded. And here's what was interesting is he said his spiel, whatever it was. And my wife's response was this: oh, perfect. Yeah, I've been waiting for you guys to come. And I'm sitting there thinking, oh man, she is really like, she's going to just like pretend to be interested. And she's like, yeah, no. Oh yeah, perfect. Oh, yep. Okay. Yeah. How much? Perfect. Yes, that's great. She shuts the door. And I was like, what happened? And she's like, oh, that was the guys here to clean. They came to see if we wanted to have our windows clean. And I was like, yeah, sure. We need our windows cleaned. So he's going to clean the windows. And I was like, whoa, wait a minute. You said the next person that came and tried to sell you something, you were going to let them have it. And she's like, well, yeah, but I wanted the windows cleaned. So here's my point in that. Here's where I learned this lesson is, see, when you show up and you have something that is valuable to them, that they're interested in, they're great to talk to you and they're going to be willing to do it. See, I learned a big lesson that day that when you find something, the need that the person has, they're going to be great to talk to you. So now let's come back to this. We've got to connect or create some rapport with people. The number one human need that we all have is acceptance. Every one of us wants to be accepted. So what we've got to do in our prospecting, regardless of what type of prospecting we're doing. Now, so keep in mind, again, I don't care if it's for sale by owners. I don't care if it's just listed. I don't care if it's an SOI. It doesn't matter. What you have got to do in order to create this connection and rapport is the first thing we've got to do is we've got to ask a question. Or I'm just going to write it here as ask questions. Okay. We've got to ask some questions. That's the first thing that's got to happen. After we ask a question, we have to then let them respond. And when they respond, we need to then, the next piece is repeat and affirm what they've said. You've got to repeat and affirm. Now, let me show you what I mean by that. When you knock on somebody's door and I said, hey, Kyle, my name is Russ. I'm with Century 21. We just listed your neighbor's home down the street. And I was coming to see who you know that would want to move into your neighborhood. Or I might say, I'm going to give you a chance to pick your neighbors. Who do you know that wants to move into the area? They are typically going, oh, I just realized I wrote read and affirm. Talking and writing, not my specialty. Repeat and affirm. There we go. You guys knew what I meant though, right? That's right. So we're going to repeat and affirm. So what happens, I say, who do you know they're usually going to respond with, I don't know anyone. And I'm going to say, you don't know anyone? Okay, well, great. I appreciate you taking the time to think about it. So you've got to repeat back what they said. Now, another one that, another book that I'd recommend for you guys, if you haven't read this before, Chris Voss, who was an FBI interrogator, I don't know, negotiator, but negotiator is probably the right word. He wrote a book that's called Never Split the Difference. But he's also, in that he talks about, he calls it mirroring. So we could call it mirroring. But ultimately, at Everest, we always say repeat and affirm. He says mirror, we're going to say repeat and affirm. What he says in that is you need to repeat back 1 to 3 words that will sum up what they said. So that's the first thing we've got to do. In order to get people to be willing to talk to you, you've got to repeat and affirm. Repeat back in a 1 to 3 word thing what they said to you. And then you're going to affirm it. So if I said to Kyle, so how long have you lived at this address? And he responds with 4.5 years. Then what I'm going to do is repeat back 4.5 years. Wow, that's great. Or 4.5 years, good for you. So I'm going to do something that is, I'm repeating back so he knows I listened, and I'm saying, wow, that's great, good for you. Then I'm going to ask the next question. Now, here's what I will tell you. The key to this is when you do that and ask the next question, what you've got to do is, to some extent, the more you can have it build upon what you just said, the better it's going to be. Meaning, let me show you what I mean. So I'm going to have him interact with me, and I'm going to repeat. Remember, here's the other thing. Keep in mind, like if I came and listened to you prospect, which I'm happy to do, by the way, I would love to do that. You come and coach you on it and listen if you're interested. But sorry, somebody's trying to call me and it just messed up my screen, but I think I fixed it. Okay. Yep. If I'm going to do that, I should be able to listen to only your side of the conversation and know what they said. So what I mean, I'm going to give you an example of that is so far when I've had Kyle respond, you guys have not been able to hear him. But if I'm doing this right, you shouldn't need to, because I'm going to repeat back essentially what he said. So let me show you what I mean. So I say, so how long have you lived at this address?
4.5 years.
4.5 years, really? Where did you move from? From Tooele to here?
Yep.
Oh, you're kidding. That's great. What brought you here?
Being back at home.
So just being back at home is what brought you here. Okay, well, let me ask you this. If you were ever to move, where would you go next?
I'd go to St. George.
Down to St. George. Oh, that'd be cool. So when do you think that will happen?
I guess probably hopefully in the next year.
So probably in the next year, you'll be wanting to go down there. God, that's great. You know, I actually have a select group of people that I just stay in touch with to keep updated about the market and what's going on, so that in the next year, when you're ready to do that, you would be well informed and prepared. So you know what we ought to do, Kyle, is we ought to sit down and spend 20, 30 minutes to where I could just update you on what's going on in the market and share with you. And then I'll stay in touch with you about it, so that next year, when you're ready to make that move, you're going to be the most informed buyer out there. What works better for you, afternoons or evenings?
Well, I don't know, because there's this pandemic going on. I don't know if we should meet.
So you're worried about the pandemic going on, about if we should meet. Well, the good news is we could do it via Zoom if that makes you feel more comfortable, or we could sit outside and both wear masks.
I don't know about that. Sounds salesy.
Sounds too salesy? Well, what would be best for you? Like when it comes time for you to buy in the home, do you want to find the best deal out there?
Absolutely.
Yeah, you do, right? So if I had a way of doing that by meeting with you beforehand to educate you, wouldn't it make sense for us to get together?
I suppose so.
Okay, so what works better, afternoon or evenings?
Evenings.
Okay, good. So hopefully what you guys saw there is, notice what I did. I would ask a question, repeat and affirm back. Now, here's the thing. You've got to remember to treat this like, imagine that your friend just came back from vacation. They've gone on this trip of a lifetime. you're going to sit down with that friend at lunch or a dinner or something, and you're like, all right, I want to hear all about this trip. You know, they've got some good news or something that you're like, all right, tell me about the trip. If you stop and think about it, what's going to happen is they're going to then say, well, so we got off the plane. And then when we got off the plane, our luggage wasn't there. And you're going to be like, are you kidding? Like, so then what happened? Well, then after that, we, you know, blah, blah, blah. They're going to tell you all the stuff. But notice in that scenario, you're going to be really into the story, and you're going to be typically like, they didn't have your luggage? No way. So what'd you guys do for clothes then? And then they're going to go, oh, well, the airline said that they would pay for our clothes. They'll pay for your clothes when I had no idea. That's amazing. See, notice that. That's the way you would respond if you were talking to a really good friend about it and you were really interested. So here's the key. On this connection piece, you have got to become very interested in them. So be interested in them, but you also need to be interesting too, I guess, but you need to be interested. And the key thing on this is repeat and affirm. Now, let me explain to you guys for a minute. Remember I said, I will happily listen to you and give you some input and help you in terms of getting better if you want me to. But here's what I typically notice when I get with somebody. I'm going to redo this with Kyle, but I'm going to do it the way that I usually hear people do it. They'll repeat and affirm, but this is what it usually sounds like. So how long have you lived at this address?
4 years.
Oh, 4 years. Okay. Well, where did you move from?
Tooele.
Oh, Tooele. Okay.
I know.
Now, how exciting are you? How much are you going to want to talk to me if that's how I am? If I'm like, oh, well, that's great.
Are you okay, Russ?
Yeah. Like notice that you've got to be like, and what does it matter what they said? So throw out a different answer. How long have you lived at this address?
7 years and 36 days.
7 years and 36 days. Wow. Good for you. Okay. Give me a different, shorter time frame. That's really short. How long have you lived here? You've been here 2 months. Are you kidding? That's great. See, I don't really care what they say. I'm going to be like, you've been here 38 years. That's incredible. See, we just moved in last week. You just moved in last week. You're kidding. That's awesome. Good for you. See, but when you do that, when you get excited for the person, even like, is that something to be excited for the person about? You lived there for 10 years. Oh, you lived here for 10 years? How good for you. That's great.
It could be exciting.
Yeah. Because you get excited about it. Think of it this way. People are attracted to energy. If you have energy as you respond. So when you repeat and affirm, but you got to mean it. I'm telling you, when I listen to agents do this, too many times they do it. Here's the problem. If you do it worrying about the next question you're going to ask them, it will not come through as sincere and they want off the phone immediately. If you pay attention when you get those sales calls, in fact, stay on for a minute. Instead of doing what people do, which by the way, when you hear this from people, oh, I was just walking into a meeting. How many times have you said that when you really weren't? Or that you've said something, oh, I actually got to go, but you really don't need to. See, here's the funny thing. When we're on the other end of it and somebody says that to us, oh, I was just walking into a meeting. We're like, oh, well, yeah. Well, when can I call you back then? What would be a good time to call you back? Oh, call me back at like 5 o'clock tonight. And then for you guys that have been in the business for a while, what happens when you call back at 5 o'clock that night?
No
So
answer.
how's
You're
that
ghosted.
expecting? Sorry, go ahead, Ginger.
No answer. There, you're
Yeah, that's
ghosted.
my experience is they typically don't answer.
Because they're full expecting.
Because yeah, they're expecting you to call. So they're like, oh yeah, that's the number, block. So here's how I like to approach it when you hear somebody give you that excuse, that is their way of telling you you didn't connect with them. Or number two that we're going to talk about. So in order to connect with people, and again, regardless, I don't care what type of prospecting you're doing, you've got to ask questions, repeat and affirm. And actually, before we get to number two, I want to give you one other. The other one that you've got to do to create this connection is empathy. You have to have empathy for people. So especially a for sale by owner or an expired, when you call them, if I call them and I say, hi, my name is Russ with Century 21, and they've gotten 50 phone calls already from agents, they're going to respond with something like, again, I'm so sick of you guys calling me. Now, what we've got to do is we have to have empathy. Empathy is going to be this. If I were you, I would feel the same. Okay. So let me show you what I mean. So I call. Seriously, I am so sick of you real estate agents calling me. You're like the 50th one to call me today. So I'm the 50th one to call me. Oh, I am so sorry. You know, if I were you, I would be pretty frustrated with that, because here you are trying to get your home sold by owner, and all that's calling you is real estate agents. Am I right?
Yeah.
They're going to go, yeah, that's exactly right. So far, that's all it's been is real estate agents calling me. I know. And then I'm going to say something like this. You kick a bush and a realtor all of a sudden runs out, right? And then usually they're going to kind of laugh and be like, yeah, it feels like that. And then I'm going to say, you know, the next thing you know, they're going to be flying over your house with a helicopter, dropping pamphlets on your house about why you should list your home with them. And they're going to be like, yeah, seriously, like, what is up with you guys? How come everybody's calling me like that? And then from there, I'm probably going to go, you know, well, here's what happens is you get a lot of agents that are out there that they're just looking for a deal, and they've been taught and told to call for sale by owners. So the reason you're getting that many calls is because that's what's going on. So look, hey, if I were you, I would be frustrated with it too. But let me ask you, when you sell this home, where is it that you're wanting to go to? And they're going to say, oh, well, we're building a new home and blah, blah, blah. Oh, you're building a new home? That's exciting. So what kind of had you decide to do that? See, now remember, I'm doing this as if I'm talking to the friend, and I'm going to be excited. Like, you're building a new home? Good for you. So that's exciting. Where are you going to be building at? Well, I'm going to be building it. Now here's the thing. What if the other side is the case? What if instead of it's something exciting, it's, hey, so why did you decide to sell this home? Well, we decided to sell the home because my wife just passed away. And so I just can't stay in this home any longer. I don't want to be like, your wife passed away? Good. That's exciting. That's great. You're back on the market. You know, you don't want to do that, right? So instead, we're going to empathize with them. And we're going to be like, oh, you're kidding. I am so sorry to hear that. And then from there, I may ask a few other questions of, you know, was it expected or was it not expected? But we've got to actually sincerely get into that mode of empathy. See, figure out if it's something exciting, be excited with them. If it's something sad, be sad with them. That's how you're going to get this connection or the rapport to have them to be willing to want to keep talking to you and stay on the phone with you, or if you're at the door, to stay at the door with you. Okay. All right. So that's number one, is that's how we are going to connect. Number two, then, is we have, remember what we're talking about here is how to set appointments. And what I learned about how taking the prospecting to be able to just set one appointment every day. The next is you've got to create value. So I've got to create some value. Another book that I always recommend on this, and this one is most books that I recommend to you are going to be those, 300-page kind of a things. This one is The Secrets of Question-Based Selling, Thomas Freeze, with no Z's, but with S. I don't remember if it's two S's or one, but Freeze with an S. He calls it Make Them Curious. So I'm going to do /curious here, okay? When you are prospecting, you have got to either create some value that they see value in talking to you, or you got to make them curious. In that book, The Secrets of Question-Based Selling, Thomas Freeze talks about, he calls it, you got to make people curious. And the example that I love that he uses in there, which is that Questions of Secret-Based Selling is not actually a real estate sales book. It's just kind of a sales in general. But the one where he talks about this making people curious, he actually talks about real estate. So let me give you an example. What he talks about in the book is he says that when you call and you leave somebody a voicemail, what it sounds like to them when they hear it is Charlie Brown's Teacher. Now, we probably have some on here who are maybe not old enough to even know what that is, but Charlie Brown's teacher was the wah, 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 wah. So what would happen, or what happens, actually, let me say it that way. What happens is when you call and you leave somebody a message. So when you call and go, hey, my name's Russ, I'm with Century 21. I noticed your home was for sale by owner. I was just calling to talk to you about the home and see if I could help you in getting it sold. Give me a call back. Guess what they hear? Hi, this is Russ with, and then they hang up. They delete your message. So you got to create some value. So he says we got to set ourselves apart so that they want to talk to us. So here's what he did. He was actually standing there with an agent that was calling farmers about trying to get them to list their land so that he could then get developers put together. So he would get the farmer to want to sell it, list the property, then take it to developers who would then come and buy it and develop the land. And this guy would call, and here's what his voicemail would sound like. Hi, this is Russ with Century 21, and I just was calling to see if you'd be interested in selling your farm. I've got developers who are looking for land that they could develop. So give me a call back if you're interested. And he hung up. And Thomas Freeze turned to this agent and he said, okay, how often do you get a phone call back from that? And he said, rarely. And he said, okay, I'm going to show you how to get a phone call back almost every time. So I'm going to share with you guys what he said as well. And basically, first thing he said, though, is you've got to create some value. And the way he says it is you got to make them curious. People will call you back if they're curious. So here's what I am not a big proponent of leaving voicemails unless it is a lead, somebody who you've talked to before, then yes. Now, Jeremy, a lot of times on Morning Ascent will say, it doesn't hurt to leave a message, and I'll agree. Doesn't hurt. So if you're going to do it, you need to make them curious enough to call you back. If you don't, you're not getting a call back, and you might as well have not left the message. So here's what he said. He said, let me make the next phone call. So he grabbed it. And he said, okay, who's the farmer? He told him who the farmer was. He said, can you print out their county records? So the agent goes on to the computer, prints out the county records. He's now got the county records in his hand. Phone rings, gets voicemail. He says, hi, my name's Russ. I'm with Century 21. I'm holding a copy of your tax records in my hand, and I have got a question for you when you have a few minutes. Please give me a call back, 801-556-4441. Thanks. Now, what do you think the chances are that they're going to call back when you call and you say, I am holding a copy of your tax records in my hand, and I've got some questions for you about your property. Now, let's put that to a for sale by owner. See, if I was calling a for sale by owner and I get a voicemail and I leave a message that says, hi, my name's Russ. I'm with Century 21. Wanted to talk to you about your home that's for sale by owner. I've got some great ideas that's going to help you get your home sold for top dollar, blah, 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 blah. They're not going to call me back. But what if you did that? You printed off their tax records so that you actually do have it in your hand, so you're not lying, and you say, hello, Mr. and Mrs. Seller. I've got a copy of your tax records in my hand, and I've got a couple questions for you about your property. Please call me back. They're probably going to go, okay, why are you holding tax records in your hand? Now, they're not going to realize that we can just go on the MLS and print off a copy of their tax records, or go to the county assessor's site and print off their tax records. So they're going to call back and go, okay, why are you holding a copy of my tax records in your hand? Now, here's how I'm going to respond then. So they call back. Hey, so yeah, I'm calling you back. You said you had my tax records in your hand. You had some questions. Yeah, on here it says that your home is 2,300 square feet. I just wanted to verify, is that correct? The amount of square footage that you've got on your home? Yeah. Okay, perfect. And then the other thing that I had on here was that your home has this many bedrooms and this many baths. Is that correct? Yeah. Oh, so it does have that many. Okay, perfect. That's great. And let me ask you, now notice I'm going to go away from my tax records now. I'm going to go, so let me ask you, what type of updates and things have you done to the home since you bought it? Now, guess what they're going to start to think in their head? Is this really an agent, or is this the county assessor when they're asking me about updates I've done to my house because they're wanting to increase my tax value? So if they asked you that, did you say you were an agent, or you're like with the tax assessor, or what? No, I'm a real estate agent. I just was curious as to what type of updates you had done to your home. And they say, well, since we moved in, we painted and we carpet and blah, 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 blah. We did this and that. Wow. So you man, it sounds like you've done some really great things with your home. Let me ask you, like, why would you decide to sell such a beautiful home? It sounds like you've done a great job. Now, remember, people want validation. Sounds like you've done a great job, Kyle, in updating your home. What's made you decide to sell such a beautiful home? Well, we just want to get a bigger one. You want to get a bigger one? Oh, that's great. So is there some life changes that have happened that's causing you to need to sell this? I mean, why not keep, see, here's what I've found too. Sometimes by saying, why wouldn't you just keep this home? Well, because we can't afford to keep it or whatever. So let me give you actually an example. I went on a hike last night, just up in the mountains here, in the non-snow part of the mountains, which this year is pretty much everywhere. But I went for a little hike with a neighbor of mine. This guy is a loan officer, and he is in the process of building a new home right now. And so last night we were talking about it, and he was asking me, hey, so what do you think I should list my home at? And we were talking about it, but here's what I did. And here's the approach that I even like to do with a for sale by owner. And so this is what I did. This is a friend of mine last night, but I said to him, Dave, why don't you just keep the house? Like, don't even sell it. Like, look at what's happening with the property values. If you hold on to it, like, it's just going to go up tremendously more in value because our inventory shortage is not going away. And because it's not going away, there's no choice but prices to go up. So see, I almost turn into trying to convince them not to sell the home. See, if I do that all of a sudden with a for sale by owner, they're not going to feel like I'm just there to try to get them to sell the house. And here's the truth, guys. For me personally, I truly do believe. Well, let me ask you this way. You got, every one of you guys, stop and think about it. Do you have any homes that you have sold in the past that you wish you still owned? And when I say that, meaning because of the equity you would now have in the property. Because I don't know about you, but I can think back on, I have bought a lot of houses in my career where I have either fixed it up and sold it, or I've fixed it up and kept it as a rental. I have some that they're rentals that I wish I didn't have. But I look back on the ones that I fixed up and then turn around and sold them, you know, a fix and flip, which, just as a reminder, I told you guys this yesterday, you come across a good deal that you're not in a position to buy it, to fix it up, call me because I'll do it. But I've bought a bunch of those that I tell you what, I look back now and go, man, I wish I owned every one of those properties still. See, so I'm not being tricky with them. I truly believe, I actually have this belief, real estate is to be bought, not sold. You should not sell real estate. Now, here's the thing. I still do it. Just last year, I bought one, fixed it up and sold it. But here's what I will tell you. I truly, though, know and believe in my heart, down the road, you'll wish you didn't sell this property. So for me, if I say to somebody on a for sale by owner, hey, why sell it? Why not just hold on to it? But most of the time, the people are going to say, well, I have to sell it. So sometimes an agent will say to me, but yeah, but aren't you worried you're going to convince them not to sell their house and then now you don't get the listing? Very rare. It's possible. But I'll tell you, usually they're going to go, no, I need the cash out of it to buy the new house. Or I'm leaving the state and I don't want to have to deal with the rental that's left behind. Okay, yeah. And then I'm going to go, oh, so you need the cash out of it to buy the new house. Yeah. Hey, that's understandable. I totally get it. And that's great. Well, and then I'm going to go right to the next question. So tell me this. But now let me come back to, so what you've got to do on the phone is I've got to create value or make them curious to want to meet with me. See, one of the things that you can say with a for sale by owner is, hey, let me ask you this. If there was a way that I could help you in marketing your home and getting your home sold, and the other agent would essentially pay the commission, meaning we could get them to pay above your price, would it make sense for you and I to get together? Well, how could it not make sense for you to get together? Now, I'm not saying 100% that I'm going to be able to do that. I'm just saying if there was a way. Now, here's why I say that. I have seen a number of times, and especially in our market right now, our prices are going up faster than most people realize, faster than I even realize. I had a neighbor in my neighborhood said he was going to list his home and told me that he was going to list it for $700,000. And I was like, yeah, right. Good luck. He listed it for 725. He got 6 offers the next day, sold it for 730, one of them being cash, close in 2 weeks. And I was like, oh, well, I guess our prices have gone up. See, there's a pretty good chance that's the same thing with a for sale by owner. So it's very likely you could right now in the market go to a for sale by owner and say, we could increase your price from where you're at, put the commissions on top, and maybe even still get you more money. See, so ultimately, let me give you one other that I like to do with in terms of a for sale by owner or an expired listing that creates value or makes them curious is I'm going to ask this for sale by owner. Hey, so let me ask you, have you considered how you could use points when you're negotiating an offer with the seller, or excuse me, the buyer? Now, how many seller for sale by owners are going to say, I don't even know what you're talking about. How am I going to use points? See, my guess is most of you right now are even going, I don't know what you're talking about even. See, that's how you're going to make people curious. Now, I am not going to turn this into a training on how to use points, but I'm going to give you the answer on it, but I don't want to turn this into a whole long discussion about it. And that is this. So when I say, have you considered how you could use points? Interest rates are at historic lows right now. Like we're talking 2.5%-ish. Okay. So if I get a buyer that comes in and says, hey, I need, which by the way, this idea I'm going to give you guys, if you're working with buyers that need their closing costs paid, this is how you can do it. Okay. So here's what you do is the buyer's going to come in and make an offer and say, we need the seller to pay closing costs, or you're working with a buyer. So I'm talking about how to create value, but I'm also now teaching you how to use points. Okay. So you got a buyer that says, hey, we need them to pay our closing costs. Well, in today's market, you're going in and making these offers and you're getting outbid by people, right? One of the things you can do in terms of this using points is now you got to talk to the lender to make sure your buyer can qualify for this, that they're not at the top of their range. But if they go in and had, let's say the interest rate's 2.5%, and instead of me getting a 2.5% interest rate, I'm going to have them give me a 3 or a 3.25% interest rate. The lender can now pay the closing costs on behalf of the buyer. See, if they charge a higher rate, there's money that comes back that the lender could use to actually pay the closing costs for the buyer. Now, you might say, why would they want to do that? That could cost them a ton of money all over the life of the loan. Yes. However, as long as interest rates stay low, what they could do if they charge them a high enough rate. So this is where I'm saying you might have to go like even 3.25 or something, and they got to qualify. But if you did that, they can buy the house, they get in, the lender pays their closing costs for them. And then 6 months-ish later, whatever the lender's comfortable with, they go do a refinance on the property, refinance it down to the lower rate, and hopefully now get the payment back down as well. So hopefully they're only maybe a 6 months of making that extra payment of 50 or $100, provided they could qualify. But here's the thing. Remember, I'm trying to get an appointment with the people. I got to make them curious. That's one of the ways with a for sale by owner or any seller, really. You knock on somebody's door, you call them on the phone. We've thought about selling, but we've got a friend that's going to list our home for us. Oh, well, have they talked to you about how to use points when an offer comes in? Now, I want to be really clear. You're not going to be able to use this strategy every single time, but it is a way to get them curious to want to at least be willing to talk to you. See, if you said to somebody, have you considered how you could use points when it comes to negotiating the offer? The answer is going to be no, I don't even know what you're talking about. To which you can say, that's the very reason we need to get together. So under this curious thing, the language you want to use is that's the very reason we need to get together. That's the very reason we need to get together. And then you want to say now, what works best, afternoon or evening, okay? So you're going to create some curiosity in the people. Then you're going to say, what works better, afternoon or evening? So now let me talk about on the buyer side. On the buyer side, the way I like to do it is this. Well, if I'm talking to somebody that's a potential buyer and they're saying, oh, well, we might have an agent or whatever. or they just say, we've thought about it, but I don't know. My friend said they might know somebody that could help us, whatever. What are the things that I like to do? And I'm going to tie this together back to what I've already said to you guys. I'm always looking for a good deal that I can buy. And in fact, actually, let me give you a real world example of this that happened. So this was back in May of last year. I was trying to do some virtual call arounds, but I couldn't get anybody really to participate. So in May, I was standing here in this training room and I was on Zoom and I said, all right, let's make phone calls. And people started making phone calls and I was like, hey, unmute so we can hear your phone ringing. And then once somebody answers, everybody mute so that we can hear what you're saying and we'll talk about it. Well, as you can imagine, nobody wanted to do that. So everybody left their phone or their computers muted, or so they either weren't calling at all, or they just left their computer muted. So I'm sitting here kind of going, all right, guys, I would love to hear somebody make a call, and nobody was. So I finally said, okay, I'm going to make a call then. So I jumped on and I made a phone call and I picked up, it had a potential buyer that picked up the phone. And I said to her, hey, my name's Russ. I'm with Century 21. I was just giving you a call. I wanted to get an idea what you were looking for in buying a home. And she said, we're just browsing. We're not really that serious about it. We just were seeing what's out there. And I did what I told you guys. Oh, you're just seeing what's out there? That's awesome. That's a great place for you to be starting. See, I'm always going to affirm back what they're doing. Hey, that's great. I'm glad you're out just getting an idea what's out there. That's a smart thing for you to do. It's a great place to start before you buy a home. So give me an idea of what you're looking for in a home. And she just said, well, like I said, we're really not sure we're going to. And even if we do, my husband's mom is a realtor. And I go, oh, is she a realtor in Utah? And she said, no, she's actually in Chicago. Oh, she's a realtor in Chicago. See, I repeat and affirm. Oh, she's a realtor in Chicago. That's great. Well, hey, one of the things that I would totally be willing to do is I'll pay her a referral fee when you guys buy, so that way she actually makes money off you buying a home. And she goes, you would? I'm like, yeah, absolutely. I would do that. Not a problem. Oh, all right. And I said, well, so give me an idea what you're looking for. And she started to, actually, no, I take that back. She hesitated one more time. She was like, well, I'm not sure. And so now, remember, I got to create some curiosity or create some value. And so here's what I said, I come across some really good deals on properties before they hit the market. So if I knew what you were looking for, I could keep an eye out for you. And she says to me, well, this is what we're looking for. Now, no lie, I told you guys last year I bought one that fixed up and sold. It was in Woods Cross, for you guys that are familiar in Utah. It was in Woods Cross. And she told me they wanted to buy a house in either Bountiful or Woods Cross. And I said, and when she described the house, it was exactly this house that I actually just bought. And I said, oh, I wish I would have known that. I wish you and I had talked before, because I actually had the perfect house for you. And I actually even said, I still might have access to this property for you if you want it. Right now it's in the rehab state, but it sounds like it'll be perfect for you guys in what you're describing that you would want in a home. I wish I had known what you were looking for before. I could have got you the deal. And all of a sudden, tons of value. She's like, all right, well, yeah, let's go take a look at it. I would be interested in seeing what it looks like. Great, let's go out and do it. All right. Hopefully I've beat that one up enough. You got to create value and make people curious. Third thing, I need a new page here. So third and final thing, and then I'm going to pull up the NAR report and show you real quick. And then we'll be done, is close. So you've got to connect, you got to create value, and then you have to close. There are only 5 ways in the English language you can close, guys. And it's what time, which time, how soon, when, and where. Those are the only ways in the English language you can ask for an appointment. If you're saying anything else, you're not asking for an appointment. If you say, can we get together? You're not asking for an appointment. You're asking if it's possible to get together. If you say, would you like to get together? You're not asking for an appointment. You're asking them if they would like it. The only ways you can ask for an appointment is saying what time, which time, how soon, when, or where. Now, there are different variations of that, meaning you heard me say to Kyle, what works best, afternoon or evening? That's just another way of saying which time. Meaning I could have said, which time works best, afternoon or evening? So you can do variations of that. Hey, what works better, afternoon or evening? But in essence, if I say that, I'm just saying which time is all I'm asking. Okay. So what time, which time, how soon, when, or where? I had an agent that I was in teaching this class to one day, and she was a seasoned agent. She'd been in the business probably as long, maybe even longer than I had been at the time. And I said this, I said, if you say to people, can we get together? You're not asking for an appointment. And she said, I say that all the time and I get appointments. And I said, okay. And so here's my point in that. If what you're doing is working for you, don't change it. If what you're doing is working, you don't need to change it. But if what you're doing is not getting you the results you would like, then that's a place to look at. And so that's what I said to her. She said, I say, can we get together all the time? And I get tons of appointments. And I said, well, are you happy with where your business is? And she said, yes. And I said, then great, don't change it. See, I'm not here to tell you to change what you're doing if it's working. But if it's not working, if you're not getting an appointment, one of the first places I would ask you to look at is, what are you asking them when you ask for an appointment? Are you saying what time, which time, how soon, when, or where? Because if you are, then I'll help you change it. But chances are you're not. You're saying, can we get together? Would you like to get together? Why don't we get together? You're saying something like that. So change it to, hey, what time would be best? Which would be better, afternoons or evenings? How soon would you like to get together? When could we get together to talk to more about that? Where would you like to meet up that we could talk about that? See, those are the only ways you can ask for an appointment in the English language. If you're saying something other than that, you're not asking for an appointment. All right, let me stop sharing here. And now I'm going to show you, I want to just bring up and talk about for a minute. Oops, let me get it pulled up here. NAR does a survey every year of home buyers and sellers. And as part of this survey that they do every year, they go out and they ask home buyers and sellers what bunch of questions. And as they ask them the questions, then they compile this data. So they do it in July of every year that they're going to get all this information. After they have gathered all the information, then what's going to happen? My screen is not looking the way it does on, that is so weird. On my, where I'm sharing it is full screen. For whatever reason, it's not for you guys. Hopefully you can see it well enough. So they send this out in July. They work to get the data back between August and September. October, they start compiling it. They release it in November. Now, what you're looking at right here is the 2018 of buyer assisted versus for sale by owner, or excuse me, agent assisted versus for sale by owner. What you will notice here on this as you look at it is, yeah, what is going on? I'm moving my mouse around, but it won't show up for you guys. I do not understand. Let me try one more time of resharing it. I don't know. Anyway, that's all right. You'll just, when you look at that, you'll notice that the number of people selling their home for sale by owner has been in a steady decline since 1985 is what that says. And like I say, you may not be able to see it as well, but since 1985, it's gone from 21% down to 7% in 2018. The only reason I'm still showing you the 2018 of this report is because it, I like this format. This is the way it looks now. So they changed it. So yeah, now that's not showing for you guys. What is going on? Let me try it again. Sorry. Now it just won't even show anything. All right, I might not be showing you guys the report today. Let me try it one last time. Third time's the charm. It's gonna work. Or not. All right, guess it's not gonna work. I'll show it to you tomorrow. Remind me tomorrow and I'll show it to you. So Kyle's asking where you can find it. And actually this year it was free. So hopefully it still is. If you go to realtor.org, So realtor.org, make sure you go to realtor.org, not realtor.com. You go to realtor.org and you have to log in with your NERDS number, your NRDS number. Yeah, why won't it share? I don't understand. Oh, well. If you go there and log in with your NRDS number and then just do a search for the profile of home buyers and sellers, it will bring up the 2020 and you could just download it. Typically it costs $20, but for whatever reason, I don't know if it's because of COVID or what, but for some reason they decided to just include it for free. So anyway, I'll try it again tomorrow. We'll see if we can pull it up and show it to you for you so that you can see it. But here was the point that I wanted you to see basically is actually, let me try one last time. Ah, it worked. There we go. Yeah, fourth time was the charm. All right. We'll cross our fingers and it's actually showing it right. Okay. So this is what it looked like for the 2020. And you can see that it ticked up from 7% to 8%. So I showed the last chart I showed you was the 2018, 19 was the same, and then 20 is 8%. Okay. Next. Good. It's working. Hallelujah. All right. So this one, what this is showing you, and remember that I said to you earlier about with a for sale by owner, if there was a way that we could help them sell the property and still walk away with more money, this is my proof. So what you're looking at here is the data for sale by owners. The median selling price of all sellers was $242,300. All for sale by owners is $217,000. If they knew the buyer, their median price was $176,000. If they didn't know them, it was $255,000. All agent assisted transactions, the median price is $295,000. And if they tried it for sale by owner first and then listed with an agent, was $269,000. So if you look at that, essentially what the numbers that are important to me are this. If somebody sold their home for sale by owner and they sold it to somebody they knew, they gave them a good deal, which is why this is at $176,700 as the median. But if they didn't know them, this is the price. So most for sale by owners that you would be talking to, that you would be saying, you should list your home with me, basically, and I'm going to get you more money. Here's the proof of it. The median price is $255,000 if they sold it for sale by owner and they didn't know the buyer, versus an agent assist is at $295,000. What is the difference in that percentage wise from $255,000 to $295,000 is essentially what, $40,000, right? So we're just under, I usually just say 10 to 14%, 12 to 14%. Is typically, if you list your home with an agent, you are going to sell it, according to NAR here, at basically the median $40,000 more than somebody who does it for sale by owner. So hopefully you're seeing that to where, for me, that's where I feel like I can go with confidence and say to people, if you list your home with me, I'm going to be able to net you more money. See, because they're usually doing it for sale by owner for what reason? Yeah, to save the commission. But at the end of the day, what you want to say to them is really, it's not about saving the commission. It's about netting you more money, right? And they're going to say, yeah. Well, if there was a way I could net you the same or more, wouldn't it make sense for us to get together? Yes. All right. Next chart that I want to show you. This is how sellers chose their agent by repeat and first-time sellers. Now,
Excuse me, Russ.
Yeah.
I have one question about that previous chart.
Sure.
That last column where they started out as a FSBO and then an agent assisted them to sell it, it's 269. So if I'm working with a smart FSBO and they see that, they're like, well, I mean, yes, they're still going to net more, but the difference is far less. How do you explain that the difference is so great when they started out as a FSBO and then went listed with an agent?
Yeah, good point. So here's how I usually try to approach that one is ultimately when my thinking on this is when somebody is like first hit as a for sale by owner. And so how I explain it to them is the longer that your home sits on the market, the more it goes down in value. And the proof of that is, here's why. Here's what happens. The longer you sit as a for sale by owner, the more likely it is for that to happen. And the reason being is because the buyers who are interested in the area are driving the area and they've seen your house. And the moment you list it with an agent, they potentially, now, how I'm going to say this to the seller is different than what I'm saying to you right now. So let me go back. I'm going to say to them, the longer you have it up for sale by owner before you list, the more stale it becomes on the market. Because the buyers who are interested in buying in your area are driving the area and seeing it. And if it sits on the market as a for sale by owner for more than a week or two, and then you list, the buyers interpret it as that you are now, what's the word? You're desperate. You're now desperate because you've listed it with an agent and they know that you had it listed at whatever price it was. So now they come in and say, we're going to try to undercut you. So I usually approach it, Ginger, with them of saying, I understand. And remember, I use the empathy. Hey, if I were you, I would want to try to sell my home for sale by owner too, because I would want to net the most amount of money. But let me share with you, or can I share with you what I have learned? You don't want it to be for sale by owner more than a week or two at the max, because if you get beyond that, then this chart comes into play where what's going to happen is the buyers come in and start to undercut you because they know you're desperate, or they think you're now desperate. So anyway, hopefully that helps.
Thank you.
Okay, this chart shows how sellers chose their real estate agent. You'll notice here at the top, 41% of the time, they are referred by or is a friend, neighbor, or relative of the agent. So this is why SOI is so crucial, and we're going to do a whole class on it next week. Use the agent previously to sell the home 26% of the time. Here's the sad thing to me. Only 1 out of 4 people that buy a house use their agent when it's time to sell it, is what this tells you. And honestly, that it's a good news, bad news thing. It's great for you if you weren't the agent who helped them buy the house because it means you got a chance. But what it also tells me is the agents don't stay in touch. So make sure you're doing that. Then you'll notice after that, it drops off very dramatically. Meaning 5% came off the internet, 4% were personal contact, meaning you just phone called somebody or door knocked them, or 4% was referred by another agent or visited an open house. Like you'll notice it drops off dramatically there. So what I want you to see from this chart, remember I said to you yesterday, you got to pick 2 or 3 ways you're going to prospect, and one of them has to be SOI. This is the reason I say that, is look at how, because ultimately in my mind, these 2 added together are your SOI, which is 66% of the time. 2/3 of the time, the way the seller is going to choose is because of they are either a friend, neighbor, or relative, or they're referred by one. So you got to work your sphere of influence. The other thing I want you to notice is it doesn't matter what you do outside of that, the other 2 or 3 ways you're going to prospect, just pick them and go do it. But stay consistent with it. Don't bounce all over the place. All right, next. Here's how the buyers chose their agent. 40% of the time they were referred by or is a friend, neighbor, or relative. 13% used the agent previously. And the one that I always have to point out that every year it's this way, 2% were of the first-time home buyers used the agent previously. And I don't know how you are a first-time home buyer, but you used the agent previously. Maybe they used them to rent, I guess. I don't know. Anyway, doesn't matter. I'm just joking. But same thing you'll notice on this. 53% of the time, these 2 added together, the way that the buyers are choosing who they're going to use as their agent is SOI. And then after that, it almost doesn't matter again. It drops off dramatically. So just pick 2 or 3 ways that you're going to do it and then stick with it. But like I say, this year, guys, at least when I went and did it in December to print that off, because it comes out every November, when I went in to print that, it was free this year. I usually pay $20 for it, but it was free. So hopefully it's still the case. If not, I guess you should have come to my class in December. I'm just kidding. I don't know. All right. Questions or comments? While I'm waiting to see if people are typing or unmuting, here's what I will tell you is, so tomorrow is going to be a activities management class is what we're going to go through. But I'm going to actually start with seeing if you had any questions about any of this, setting appointments and that kind of stuff. I may even actually take some time with you guys to share a little bit. Actually, I will. I'm going to commit to this. Here's what I'm going to do. So if I don't, remind me. But I'm going to tomorrow, what I wanted to talk about today as well, but we just didn't get to it. So I'll do it tomorrow, and we've got time tomorrow. So I'm going to talk about how to do expireds, how I would approach expired listings and work them. So we'll start with that tomorrow. So I'm going to give you in a way that if you'll do it, it'll work. And we've got an agent here in this office that I'm in right today that does this. And he in 2020, I think made 700,000-800,000, somewhere in that range. The two sources he works is his SOI and expireds. And I'm going to tell you tomorrow, I'll share with you how he works those expired listings, because between his SOI and these expired listings, he's making 700,000-800,000. He might have even been over 8, I don't know, but he had his best year ever. So anyway, I'll share that with you tomorrow. So thank you for being with me today. If you didn't put your first and last name and office in the chat box, please do that so that I have a record of it. I think most everybody did, but thanks for being with me. We'll see you tomorrow, same time. So 9 a.m. for you guys in California, 10 a.m. for Utah. And we'll start with the expireds, then we'll go into activities management. I'm going to give you a way of approaching to know if you're spending your time effectively or not, is what tomorrow is going to be. So awesome. Thanks for being here, guys. And I'll stay on for a few minutes so that if people need to put their name in the chat box still. But thanks for being here, and we'll talk to you later.